Rhion, back in 2009, we published The Art of Consultation. Would we have thought then that we would need to write another book?
I don't think we did, but I don't think it was long before we realised that the real challenges of consultation actually didn't really lie in the technical sphere. And yes, people can write good questionnaires. I wish they did all the time, but and people know how to organise the various meetings, and online has come on. And I think it became clear that the challenges lie in the politics, whether you use a large P, and a lot of it is large P politics, or in the smaller P style as well.
Yes, and so much has happened in the intervening time that it seemed a shame not to actually capture what and why has gone on.
Every day, every week, we are picking up stories of how politicians are initiating consultations, or maybe they are responding to consultations, they are acting upon consultations. Just listen to the Radio 4 Today programme just about any morning you care.
And of course, every single one of them is a story, isn't it?
And of course, consultation works differently in different sectors, whether you talk about health, whether you talk about planning, whether you talk about central government. And I didn't think anybody told the story of how this massive social change towards greater public participation has actually manifested itself in our democracy.
Absolutely, and I think what we've written is both the overall story and all the myriad of small stories which actually are the jigsaw that hold the whole thing together.
Well, you've insisted on writing that story about my local village.
Ah, that's one of our favourite ones. I mean, who would think that chopping down a tree without the parish council knowing it was going to be done would cause such a furore?
Now, the parish council denies that, but they didn't consult.
They didn't consult. And of course, we go from what you might call parish pump all the way up to central government, and we have quite a lot of those examples. Let's think about building schools for the future, and of course, Michael Gove is still very much a figure of the moment, and how he didn't consult the schools. And they had a legitimate expectation that they would be consulted, off to court.
Yeah, but lots of government ministers have ended up in court. There's been a challenge to the Independent Living Fund, to tuition fees, any number of government policies where they thought they had a manifesto commitment, and they've still come unstuck when the courts have ruled upon the legitimacy, or the lawfulness, rather, of the consultation.
Absolutely, and of course we can go to cases which they shouldn't have favourite cases, but like the story of King Richard III and where he should be reburied. And another politician who got into some trouble over making a manifesto pledge was, of course, the famous case of Partingdale Lane.
Councillor Coleman.
Councillor Coleman, yes.
And we tell that story in the book, don't we? Because here was a councillor with a manifesto commitment: I'm going to reopen this rat run, and he was taken to court and he lost.
Yes.
Poor Councillor Coleman.
I'm worried that people might think we're having a go at politicians.
Well, I hope they won't, because we are trying to be sympathetic to the dilemma that politicians have. Because on the one hand, they want to be seen to be listening, and on the other hand, they want to be true to whatever promises they have made. I think we're trying to be helpful to politicians, trying to show them how they can handle public engagement rather better. What I'd like to see is Parliament to take more of a lead. I mean, you know the story of Magna Carta, don't you?
Well, we were rather surprised that this one went quite as badly as it did. Such an opportunity to consult.
Because Graham Allen MP, a man for whom we had considerable regard,
Absolutely.
was chairing the relevant select committee, and to celebrate the 850th anniversary of Magna Carta, decided they would hold a public consultation on whether or not we should have a written constitution. It was a bit of a damp squib, really, wasn't it?
It was.
And it's because Parliament had no budget, no skills, no expertise in how to consult the public, which is surprising given that the select committee system is a form of, a rather inadequate form, of public consultation.
What about evidence-based policy making? How do we think we fare on that one?
A lot of people would say evidence-based policy making is on the back foot at the moment. The current mood of the moment appears to be that ideology is more important than evidence. So you've got direct democracy versus representative democracy, and I reckon we've got to make the case against dumbing down debate.
And of course, a consultation can give you such a wonderful richness and wealth of the exact evidence that will help you make those decisions properly.
Provided people realise it's not a vote,
No.
and that it's the quality of the argument, and maybe who makes it, rather than how many of you are there.
So, do you think we've written anything that people are going to really get exercised about in this book?
Well, what I hope they'll focus on is us recognising there's a heck of a lot of consultation around. Some of it is done well, a lot of it is done quite badly, and we somehow need better standards, and we shouldn't have to rely on the courts for those standards to be enforced.
I mean, I've taught the gunning principles over and over and over, and people still seem to think they're very important. But we want to go beyond gunning, don't we?
I think we have to, because after all, they were set up in 1985. But even if they were absolutely the right principles, and they mostly are, I mean, if you don't like a consultation, fancy having to raise £50,000 to go to the court, take 6 months, and even then not be sure that you're going to win your case. So I think our suggestion, which is of a new best practice framework, will commend itself to a lot of people.
So do you think people are going to read it to the end and find out what we've said?
Well, there are 3 duties for consultors, and there are 3 rights for consultees. But it is a bit more complicated than that. I think we'll probably take about 50 pages to explain what those are.
Absolutely, and I'm quite excited that we've got the opportunity to open up this debate and really get people probably to think things that they haven't thought before.
And the sad thing is that the academic world has not really looked at public consultation in the depth that it needs to be looked at. I rather hope that they will look at our book, conclude that it's not nearly up to the academic standards they want, because it's all the storytelling. Was it 50 consultations we talk about?
At least, yes.
At least that. And that they will rise up to the challenge of looking to see what role does consultation really play in our democracy. Because for certain, a lot of money and a lot of time, a lot of civil service effort, and a lot of public bodies are spending an arm and a leg on consultation, and hopefully our book will reveal whether it's worth it or not.
I very much hope so.